Welcome to the good, the bad, and the sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be covering is one of those horror icons that we haven't had a chance to talk to yet. Also, not many sequels for it. Only one. And we're going to be covering it. Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh. Tony Todd's amazing character that he crushes, knocks out of the park. I remember having this on VHS as a kid, as you've heard me talk about before. If you've been a listener for a while, if you're new, welcome. Please subscribe, share all that fun stuff. But my dad was a garbage man. We had a ton of VHS tapes, as I surround my studio with now, that I got from various people that were giving them away online or very cheap. I picked some out. But we always had sequels. People threw out sequels. My dad would bring home like boxes of like, hey, look what somebody threw out. I'd be like, oh, 6 copies of Ace Ventura: When Nature's Called. Like, I gotta keep it. Same with this movie. I remember watching this movie so many times as a kid. So it'll be fun to be able to dip my toe back in it and see if it's the same as when I was a kid. Jamie never saw it, never saw the original, so he's gonna do what he really doesn't do. Watch the first one before we dive into the second. So that'll be fun next week. And for it, we talked to an actor who had a small role in this movie, but has been a working actor for a ton of years, over 40 years in TV and film. Before that, he's doing Broadway, he's doing theater in California. He's doing it all. And that's Randy Oglesby. Randy, you can see more recently. He's in a ton of stuff. But if you watch The Burbs, he's Bill Festerson. If you watch For All Mankind, he's Jim Bragg, who starts as a governor, then a vice president, then president. Has a cool story about that. And then Spider-Noir, he's Chief McNamara, the Nicolas Cage Spider-Noir film. But series rather. But yeah, so he's been in a ton of stuff. It was so cool to talk about his journey from Memphis to, essentially, that he wasn't kind of thinking about this too much. It was like, oh, this is another class I have to add when he's in college. He's doing plays in high school, but no serious, hey, this is going to be something I'm going to do for the rest of my life. He went for medical. He was pre-med, and then he's in Project Alf and all these movies down the road. But one of the cool stories about how he landed Pale Rider, he talks about it's just, again, sometimes it's being at the right place at the right time, or having your photo in the right place at the right time. A little foreshadowing to his story. So yeah, Randy was a lot of fun to talk to, pick his brain, and man, he loves the craft. And that's my favorite thing. And if you're a Star Trek fan, he's one of those guys in a ton of different Star Trek episodes, so many different makeups, so many different things he's done over the years. I'll put his IMDb in the episode notes so you can see his credits. But he's in so much. He's in Liar. He's the detective that's on the stand in the movie. But yeah, great chat. Before I start the interview, please like, subscribe, share, because we have a lot of content. This is going to be episode 423, which is nuts. So you have a lot of stuff to go back on. Tons of interviews with folks that you love growing up. Big people are 80s, 90s, 2000s. Not saying we don't have current people, but try to go to the people that, man, we grew up loving them. So much fun. So yeah, all of our social media handles are at Sequels Only. And yeah, without further ado, here is a Memphis boy who just became like this, boom, acting sensation on Broadway, doing theater, and then in so many amazing movies over the years, Randy Oglesby. Okay. Yeah, it's so cool that when Charles reached out to me, because we just finished The Burbs probably like a month ago, and it was so well done, and you were so good in it, and it was, it's so funny. Remember obviously you do remember because you were acting, I'm sure, auditioned for a lot of those shows, but during like that 80s, 90s, like once Ferris Bueller was big, they did like a Ferris Bueller TV show. They like a Bill and Ted TV show. So like with The Burbs, because that movie's had such a near dear special place in my heart. I love Joe Dante. He's a Jersey guy. I'm in New Jersey. And it's just the perfect movie. So when that got announced and all the cast was leaking and Keke Palmer's the best, the show was so well done.
Yeah, they had some, Brian Grazer and Seth MacFarlane were the producers. So you had a pretty powerful pair at the helm. So I'm sure they were well funded, well heeled.
Yeah.
Right. We shot at Universal on the back lot, which was classic. It was in the neighborhood, in one of the neighborhoods up there, and, the house that is the sort of the dilapidated, spooky Victorian, that was the Munsters house.
Oh, yeah. That is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was a little sense of history, and bygone, series, kind of drifting through the the atmosphere of the shoot, but it was fun. It's always neat to be, working on the lot, and it's a regular gig. You 15 minutes from my house, I'm there at my trailer. They treat you good, it was a sweet deal.
Did you grow up, like, loving TV and film? Was that what the catalyst
No,
was at a young age to get into this?
I really enjoyed film. I was not a filmophile. I wasn't
Yeah.
sophisticated at all. I was just a kid. You'd watch shows and then you'd act them out at home and in the yard. This is before there were iPhones and
Oh,
digital.
yeah.
You played outside, in the neighborhood. And, yeah, you'd watch the Vikings, and you'd make swords and shields, and you'd be Vikings for a few days, or you'd watch, that great John Wayne movie, about the Northern Cavalry that does a great big sweep through the South, and I can't remember I'm gonna say The Horse Soldiers, I think it was called. And
Okay.
we played horse soldiers, and so you're playing whatever the popular movie, of the day is. I did that, and, I think I began to appreciate film per se, when I was in college. I was in the first film class that my school offered.
Wow,
Uh,
where'd you grow up and where'd you end up going to school?
I'm from Memphis, and I, went to
Okay.
the University of Virginia, and, uh, in 1969, the summer of '69. Well, actually, it was, the fall and, spring of '69, '70, I took a film class. It was the first film class they offered. You watch films and talked about them, and, you're exposed to Bergman and Fellini and Kurosawa and the classic great filmmakers.
Yeah.
Um, also, uh John Frankenheimer, one of his films, Seconds. Do you ever see that film by
I've never
Frankenheimer?
seen Seconds. No, I do like
Oh,
Frankenheimer.
it's a very cool
Yeah?
film. Yeah,
I gotta check that out.
yeah, and I love Seconds, and I remember, and then I watched Frankenheimer whenever I could see him. The Train is an incredible movie. It's got the first 5 minutes of the train yard where you see all the trains. It's a big overview of the trains moving. It's fascinating. It's great. It's great. And later I got to work with Frankenheimer on Path to War.
Oh, wow, so
Um,
that's cool. Why'd you
which
take a
was
film class? Was it just, "Hey, Randy, we need one more class. What are you gonna pick?" Or did you already have some
well,
inkling into acting?
it might have been that
The
it might
last
have been
class?
you're suggesting. Um, I did not start school in, I did not begin thinking. I mean, I did not start out thinking I was gonna be an actor. That came to me, um, after I got into college. Initially, I went into school for pre-med. I had real good grades. I did a couple of musicals in high school, which was great fun, but I did it just for the lark of it.
Yeah.
I was doing a bit of singing, and, um, we did West Side Story and another film, play which called The Boyfriend You Wouldn't Know. But West Side Story was great. I played Chino. He's the guy who kills Tony. I have a great dramatic scene. I've got some black and white photos of myself. I'm like I'm like this baby, but anyway, but I didn't, I wasn't thinking about being an actor, but then I literally flunked out of school so bad in my fresh, fall, autumn year of, my junior year. And I was out of school for a semester. Vietnam War was raging. I nearly got drafted, got
Ugh.
as far as getting a physical. And I got back in summer school to, get my, student deferment. And I didn't know what to do with my life. My career, because it was probably going to be very hard to work my grades back to medical school standards. And I just for something to do took a theater class, and it was a play reading class. And I'll never forget. I was very influenced by Arthur Miller's After the Fall, which is a play about his relationship with Marilyn Monroe and his breakup with his wife and his relationship with Marilyn. So thus, After the Fall. And I felt like I'd had a bit of a fall myself and was regrouping my life. And then then the fall semester came along. I took some more theater courses. I think I was in the first acting class that UVA offered.
Wow.
I mean, this was 1969. The summer of 69 was Woodstock, the moon landing. It was a very iconic moment in our history. You know, there were a lot of protests in Vietnam. People were smoking pot and taking acid, and, you know, everybody wanted to be an artist all of a sudden.
Everybody wanted to be Hunter S. Thompson, just travel around and.
Yeah, there was a cultural revolution. It was a very exciting time, very tumultuous time, very, very unsettling time for a lot of people. I'm glad, I'm glad I was young at that time. It's always nice to be young when big changes are happening because you're going to roll with it,
But the draft must have been wild. My old man, he graduated high school in 76, so he wasn't around it, but his older brother never got drafted, but that's gotta be the scariest freaking thing. Especially like you said, in that revolution, you had literal complete ends of the spectrum, like, "Hey, we shouldn't be over there," and then the other side was like, we're gonna pick you to go over there." Like, it was.
Oh, yeah, there was that you didn't have a choice, and then they put the lottery in, which then and eventually I was in the lottery, but I think my number was 81, and they got to, like, 75 that year.
Holy shit.
So once you were in the lottery and they didn't get you, you're done. So I was free. So I took did acting classes. The acting class, I started performing in plays. At one point I realized I worked with a little theater company. I met a director. He was in graduate school. I was still in undergrad, and he started casting me in plays. And always, I think maybe anybody through anybody's career, you can look at certain people that had an influence that gave you a break or that saw something in you and then wanted to use it. And that was the case. He'd put together a little theater company in Charlottesville, Virginia, where UVA was. And we started doing some performing around town. We'd sing in restaurants. We'd bartend and wait tables and sing and entertain people. We took over a dinner theater and I think we did one play, but eventually I knew that I had to go to either New York or LA. I mean, that was the route.
That was the only option then. Like Harrison Ford talked about it, like flipping a coin, like where am I to go?
You didn't have movies being shot in Atlanta or Santa Fe or North Carolina or Toronto or Vancouver. It was New York or LA. And I saw myself on a theater path, so New York and it was closer. So I went to New York in the winter of, I think 71 or 72. I can't remember. And I was a cab driver and I'd never been to New York. I got there the first day I was there. I bought a Thomas Guide. A Thomas Guide was a map book that would have all the pages of New York. You could see where to go anyway. And I got that map book and started driving a cab. And I started taking acting lessons. I found a really good teacher, Julie Bavasso, a wonderful actress and teacher, mentor. And, I started getting serious about it. I didn't have an agent. I was getting out for auditions. I think I auditioned for some soap operas. But I was in New York about 2 years. I was a cab driver. Then I lost my cab job for stupid reasons and ended up as a bicycle messenger. So it was very close to the bone. Let me put it that way. I was living in the East Village on 6th Street between 1st and 2nd. And New York was kind of a heavy place in the 70s. It was, for instance, Harlem was not, you didn't just go up and go to Harlem necessarily. There were still boundaries about, in certain ways. Well, you you're maybe too young to, but you maybe have heard. So you know what I'm talking about. Things
Oh yeah.
like have evolved in a good way, obviously.
The Bronx is Burning, the '70s was, like, pretty wild, like, Ed Koch when he was
It
the mayor, and you had,
Yeah,
Son of Sam, you had a lot of stuff going on in the
there was some
'70s.
heavy stuff going down, and again, you're lucky, you're young, you're kinda anyway, and eventually I end up, I actually fell in love with a woman and, who was a screenwriter in LA, and
Wow.
I was riding my bicycle and, I was thinking, I need to get to LA. I gotta pursue this, and I wasn't thinking of the career. Um, but, I found two $20 bills on the sidewalk, and that was the money I needed to get to LA
Oh
on the
my
Gray Rabbit. The Gray Rabbit was a hippie bus line, which was a direct trip from New York to Los Angeles. So I had enough money, but that $40 and what I had, and I loaded my motorcycle, and I had a cat. I had a cat. I loaded my motorcycle underneath the bus, and I took my cat in a little crate, and the bus had bunks set up in the back, so you could sleep if you needed to, and so all the seats in the front. So we, this group of young, free spirits, off we went to Los Angeles and ended up in LA. Of course, the romance fell apart immediately. As you know, it would. I mean, it was
Right,
doomed. It was like, come on. But I found out, but at that time, I knew I needed to go to act. I needed to learn more. I needed more tools as an actor. I would get about 2 weeks, 3 weeks into a rehearsal for something, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know so you end up having to depend on the director, and you don't want. I mean, it's okay. Some directors are great; they'll help you, but you don't want to have to depend on the director.
yeah.
You want to be bringing more of your own stuff without needing that. And so, anyway, I found out about this acting school in San Francisco, the American Conservatory Theater. They had a summer program. I auditioned for it. I got in the summer. You could go from the summer into the regular program, the year program. You do a scene at the end of the summer, and I did a scene with another woman from Memphis, and we both got in the acting school full time.
Did you know her, or was Memphis, is that
I
such
did
a
not know.
big city?
No, it was just pure chance. We did a
That's
scene together. It
funny.
was great. We killed it. We was in a small black box theater and just the two of us doing a little romantic scene from an Ibsen play. But it was one of those moments, as an actor, sometimes you have moments where you're so focused and so intent, but you can feel the audience sort of lean to you. And man, we felt it with that scene, and I knew, we had it. And
That's
sure enough, I got in. They said, "We don't give full scholarships." I said, "You gotta give me a full scholarship." They gave me a full scholarship. I got a job in a residence club in a residence hotel that had places for students. I was the desk clerk between 6 and 9 in the morning, and all day Saturday. I got room, board, and $50 a month, a week,
that's pretty
and
solid.
that's what I needed.
Yeah.
And I went to acting school. From the school, you could go into the company. I went into the company for 5 years. I ended up being in San Francisco for 7 years. And during that 7 years, I did 40 plays.
Wow.
And
That's what you said you needed, right? Yeah, that's
yeah,
like
I
boot
got
camp.
it. And there was interesting, I did a show in New York that was, I did a workshop at St. Clement's Theater, a musical workshop of a show called The Robber Bridegroom. A fellow named Raul Julia did the lead originally.
Oh, yeah, Raul Julia. Wow, great
Yeah,
actor.
Raul.
Yeah.
God bless him. He'd
Yeah.
gone a long time, I think. But Barry Bosquet ended up doing it on Broadway. But while I was in school at ACT, they contacted me and said, "We're taking it to Broadway. Do you want to come?" And it was like, wow. Well, I better think about this. And I chose to stay in school. And I don't regret it because that, I ended up being there for that time. I got to do lead roles. I got to do character parts. I was doing all kind of stuff. And they would send agents from LA would come up to San Francisco and scout and look for, young actors. And so in 82, it was time to go to LA. I'd kind of, done my thing in San Francisco, and came to LA in 82, and that was the beginning of the LA part of the journey. So
Did
I had a
somebody
good
get you down there? Did an agent get you to come down there, or is it just you were like, I gotta
I-
go down there now?
Well, I'll tell you what. Up until 82, ACT would hire 35 actors for 9 months. You'd get a 9-month Lort A contract, equity contract, making good money as an actor, unheard of, working 9 months, year in, year out. I did that for 5 years. And in 82, that was the last year they did that. So they did not hire a full company after that. So I basically didn't have a job. But a lot of us from ACT and the Bay Area were kind of in the same boat. And so I had a lot of friends when I came down here, which was very helpful. LA can be a big, very lonely place. It's huge, it's gigantic, it's spread out. It's hard to get a sense of neighborhood in LA. I mean, you do eventually once you get your feet on the ground. But I came down with a bunch of people. We started a little theater company, the Pacific Resident Theater Ensemble, and we produced plays, and I directed and wrote a play. I acted and a lot. And so I was able to keep that going while I kind of got my film TV career in gear, which took a long time. And I continued to do plays. I worked at the Mark Taper Forum, which is a big theater downtown in LA. The Music Center is what it's part of. And I worked there was another nice big theater in Costa Mesa, about 50, 60 miles south of us. So I was able to keep my theater thing going, and as I segued into more film and television.
Yeah, you're sharpening your tools. You keep being able to, practice your craft, because that's what everybody wants to do. You know?
Yeah. No, it was, even the little theater company, that was all free theater. That was 99 seat waiver, they called it. The theater could not be larger than 99 seats, and they didn't have to pay the actors. It was an equity arrangement that was made so that actors in LA could continue to, work on their craft and maybe not make money, but and agents. I mean, not agents, but agents would come, but casting directors would also come to the small theaters and scout you and bring you in. Actually, the first movie I did, which was Pale Rider with Clint Eastwood,
which is what a way to start, right?
Pretty sweet. And I'll tell you briefly the story. I did that because a young casting director came to the Mark Taper Forum and saw me in a play where I was playing a cowboy.
Really?
And he called me. Yeah. Yes, it was not it was a restoration drama, Richard Brinsley Sheridan drama, that was adapted by a young playwright and set in the Wild West. So I'd play this very funky, very goofy Western character who slaughters the English language. He talks real funny. He's got this big dialect. He's talking like this, like the colonel's going to whip me 3 ways to Sunday. It was very, very broad. But he called me in to read for Pale Rider, and Phyllis Huffman was casting, and I went in. I read for Phyllis, and that was great. Ended up getting the gig. It was a great gig. It was 2 weeks and 2 weeks, and then I was back in LA, and then came back for 10 days later in the Sawtooth Mountains up at Sun Valley, Idaho. I was a rider. I could ride, so they let me ride in the opening credits stuff, which was cool. We rode for an entire week, 8 hours a day in the Sawtooth Mountains. I mean, it was just one cavalry charge after another. I mean, it was hell-bent for life. Nobody. We were riding down mountains and up mountains and in creeks and through creeks and you name it. It was great fun.
That's cool. I interviewed Jeffrey Weissman, and he was in that, and he played Teddy Conway.
Oh,
and he told me a really cool story because I helped this actor. I'm sure you met across paths with him. This guy Larry Hankin, big time character actor. He's in a ton of stuff. He was in San Francisco at the same time as you, but he might have already left. He was at the Improv Theater. The name's on the tip of my tongue, but he told me I already kind of had an idea of like how great Clint was on the set. But
Yeah.
Jeff told me like the dinners were, Clint's with everyone and he's part of, eating with,
Oh, yeah.
everyone. Like he's involved. He's not like that guy you'd think at this point of his career, he's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
Dirty Harry how many years over now. And
Yeah,
in
yeah.
this, it's like this guy still really cares and he's like a true number one caring about everyone.
He was a you know, it's funny when I was dealing with my little theater company, I started thinking about leadership because I was sort of in a leadership position, and I studied leadership. I read some interesting books about it, and, Eastwood was a really is and was a really good leader. I
Yeah.
mean, people wanted to follow him, wanted to I mean, his crew respected him, and also he was good for a lot of work because he made a lot of movies. He was doing a couple of movies a year there for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, really, look, I mean, his output is fantastic. Yeah, and he was, but he didn't like. I came into it from theater where at theater you got to play, you sit around a table and read it and talk about it and chew it over and discuss it.
Yeah.
But you don't do that in the movies,
Yeah.
and
Few takes,
really
right?
you really don't do that on an Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't want any he doesn't want a lot of talking. You show up and go. That's kind of and, at one early on, so I realized but I still had that impulse to talk too much, but I realized I developed a relationship with the first AD, and if I wanted to ask a question or say something, I knew what I had to do was look at that first AD, and he would either go, or so so it
It was
saved
like
me
your
from
filter.
yeah, he saved me from getting Eastwood's ire, you know? It was it was such a gr but it was a great experience. A good friend of mine, a fellow named that wonderful actor named Charlie Hallahan, was in my gang. I was the doofus gang. We were the hapless bad guys. We couldn't shoot, we couldn't shoot straight. We were the ones that he beats up with the axe handles and leaves in the mud at the wagon there after we've attacked Michael Moriarty. Eastwood comes out, you know, and grabs an axe handle and then starts laying into us. And of course, at the end of the scene, after he's beating us all up, his last line is, "Nice piece of hickory." Anyway, it was great. And but you know, Jimmy Stewart said luck is very important. You don't discount it. You need a little luck.
Yeah.
And after I'd done that film, about 2 years later, I ran into the young casting director who had brought me in originally, who'd seen me in the play and brought me in to see Phyllis Huffman. And he said, "Do you wanna know how you got that movie?" I said, "Well, yeah. How did I get that movie?" He said, "I was sitting at my desk one day when we were casting, and there was a stack of Polaroids at the corner of my desk, and your picture was on top. And Clint Eastwood walked by and looked down at your picture and said, 'Let's use this guy.'"
What are the chances?
Hey, you know, you gotta have a little luck. And that was my that was my first film.
But
But,
then you gotta nail it to stay on set, like you said, like the Jimmy Stewart quote, "Luck is good,
yeah.
but when you have that opportunity, you still have to crush it. Because if not, then it's like"
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, obviously, I'd done a decent enough reading. Phyllis wouldn't have kept my picture around had it
Yeah,
not
right?
and,
She woulda got
you
rid of
know,
it.
and and my work as a theater actor paid off. If suddenly I'm in the movies because somebody saw me in a play. And,
Yeah,
if I'd been a New York actor, and originally I wanted to start my career in New York because when I left San Francisco and ACT, I was really ready to go on stage, and but for personal reasons, I came to LA. But, if you in New York at that time, that's exactly how people moved into film and television. They did plays. They'd
yep,
be off Broadway. They'd be on Broadway, and all the casting people in New York, especially, would go to the theater to find actors. And that's how all those Pacino, De Niro, that's how they all got things going. But it happened for me in LA or in a roundabout way, so I can't complain.
Yeah. And then you're working like so right after that, I'm sure you're still doing theater while you're auditioning and working on like Dallas, Head of the Class, like Star Trek. Throughout the 80s, you're still doing the theater at the same time?
Yeah, I would do well, it's weird. I haven't done a play in 10 years, which is really
Oh,
strange, but
wow, okay. So you
yeah,
kept
I
it
mean,
going that long, that's a
yeah,
tough
but
thing to do.
oh, no, I mean, at South Coast, I did plays all the way through the, through the '80s, '90s, the 2000s. I my last show, I did a wonderful production of, Pride and Prejudice, at South Coast Repertory, I think that was 2013 or 14. That may have been my last play. But, um, so yeah, I was mixing one of the plays I did at the Mark Taper Forum, I did a play that won the Pulitzer Prize. The only play to ever at that time, the only play to ever win a Pulitzer Prize without a Broadway production,
Oh my
and
god.
it was called The Kentucky Cycle. It was 6 hours long. It was
6
2
hours.
3-hour yeah, 2 3-hour plays, and we ended up taking it to Broadway. So, I had the great pleasure, in an acting career, you got your bucket list sort of, and I would say one of the items on any actor's bucket list might be to do a show on Broadway. And
Wow,
so
what
I got
theater on Broadway was it at?
the Royale,
Oh,
at the
sweet.
Royale. That was 1990, um, I think it was the winter of '93, 'cause we were not here for my wife and I had gone she we went to when I went took the play to New York, we went to the Kennedy Center first, and then we went to New York, and, she joined me there, and we were there, in the winter of '94 when we had the big Northridge earthquake in Los Angeles, so we
Oh,
were
wow.
in New York, which, and we had a anyway, but, and the great thing about Kentucky is I was working with a bunch of people a number of actors and the director. We had all done plays together and worked together in theater, and to get into the big leagues like that with your buddies it's a great experience, to have that to share it with your pals. And later, one of my best and one of my favorite Star Trek uh, characters, which was about a 11 episode arc in Enterprise. I was acting my adversary, was an actor that I'd been on stage with with the Kentucky Cycle.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
That's really cool.
we had a great time doing that together, and he murders me at the end of the. That was the storyline.
That must have been a
Anyway,
pretty big deal. Obviously, you did work on series prior to that, like, you worked on some early Star Trek in the late '80s, early '90s, but, like you talked
yeah,
about, a
yeah.
regular gig, right? That's what every actor I talk to, no matter what, it's like, that's the best thing, knowing you have that regular flow of work. So for that, that's a big deal. 11
It
episodes on Star Trek.
well, 11 episodes on that one with that one
On
character.
Enterprise alone, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I'd done another character on Enterprise, but I did a one episode gig, guest star, already, but I was wearing a lizard suit, so I was
Yeah,
completely disguised. You could do different characters in the same season with Star Trek because of the latex. You're wearing
yeah.
latex.
How'd you
Uh,
like getting in those outfits? Because
Pardon?
that's for most of your career, you're not wearing prosthetics or
Not
special
much.
effects makeup, but mostly on
No.
that. There must have been some
Oh, yeah.
long, sit in the chair days.
Well, I did, just to cover the bases, I did Next Generation. I did two different characters in Deep Space, and you could call it 3 because, in one episode, I was twins, which was a very interesting to play twins
Yeah.
and to have to act with yourself, but, and then I did Voyager, and then I did the 2 characters in Enterprise, but, yeah, one of the characters I did in Deep Space was, I don't know if you know anything about, but he was a Cardassian, and Cardassians have pretty intense makeup to begin with,
Yep.
pretty extensive, and this guy he had been blown up in a terrorist attack. Somehow his people had been attacked, and he was in this terrorist attack, and half of his face was more or less destroyed, And I told them, if this side of my face is destroyed, you got to do my hand too, because so and that makeup was 5 hours
Oh, wow.
in the chair and 3 hours to get out of it. So you put in 8 hours just doing makeup.
Yeah, just in the chair. And,
Yeah.
how early on did you realize the Star Trek fandom? Like, how intense they are, the fans, like, they have, like, they
Oh,
were the earlier ones with, like, the Comic Cons, because I don't remember them, but I remember the
yeah, yeah.
'90s Star Wars cons and, like, people going for Star Trek.
Oh, they're still doing cons
Oh,
for
I know
Star.
that. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a while, but I did a few. I went to Las Vegas a couple of times, and, maybe I can't remember where I went, but it's not. I probably should because it's quite
Yeah.
lucrative.
And it's cool to
And
connect with the fans, like, as a theater actor, since you have that background,
yeah,
when you
yeah,
finish a scene, you hear
yeah,
or you
yeah.
can feel the audience, you work on
Well,
a show, right? You're not
I tell you,
what?
well, you feel you know, the fans are great. The Star Trek fans are great. I mean, they know more about my characters than I do, and
Yeah, I'm sure.
if I were to do it now, I'm sure they would know a lot more because I'd forgotten. But, but but, uh, but I tell you, as far as the great and it happened in that episode of Star Trek where my buddy kills me, where his character assassinates mine. And, that was it was like over I said, I think it was 11 episodes. We built up this storyline, and I love the crew and the guys that were in the crew in the Star Trek, the crews, they were great. I mean, they were a great crew. They worked really hard, really fast. You felt everybody, you felt a real strong sense of, you hear about an acting ensemble and the actors have a great ensemble. You felt an ensemble about the whole production, the whole process. Everybody was working and everybody was tight and everybody was good. And they would get involved and they got involved in my storyline. And, so in that last story, that episode where I'm gonna be murdered, we were in what was my character's sort of office or suite. And, it was just me and the guy, my buddy who's gonna kill me. And normally there would have been 6, 7 people in the room, to do the shooting and lights and sound and everything, camera and everything. There must have been 25 people in that room because they all wanted to watch it. They all wanted to see how the story ended, and, eh, and I tell you, I had another experience like that. I did, and I don't know if we may get to that eventually, but I did a couple of nice seasons in For All Mankind on
Yeah.
Apple TV. In season 3, I'm the vice president, and they bring me back in season 5 as the president, POTUS. I'm POTUS. How did I become POTUS? I beat Al Gore. It's alternative history. So they twisted around and I beat Al Gore. And, but I had an experience in that when I'm playing the president and I didn't have scenes with anybody. The part really was just, it was every time you saw me, I was standing in front of the president. I was standing at a podium in front of the presidential seal addressing the nation. And one of my speeches I had to make was kind of a little tricky. It was fairly long, and it was the it wasn't easy to remember and to keep the parts of the speech together. But I was doing really good. It was going along okay. We did several takes. We did 4 or 5, maybe 5, 6 takes. And at every take, I'd finish the speech, and I just continue looking out toward the camera until they said cut. And I kept thinking, I, what? How do I was a little dissatisfied. That doesn't. I need a tag. I need a button of some sort. So we do 4, 5, 6 takes, and the director finally says, we've got it. I think we're all good. But do you feel like you want to do one just for fun, just to just one more go at it? I said, yeah, I do. Thank you. And so we start the scene, I'm doing the speech. Speech. It's good. I knew I was right in. It was in the groove. I was really nailing it. And at the end, when I finished the speech, instead of just waiting for them to say cut, I finished the speech and I turned like this and I walked straight off. And the entire room broke out in applause.
That's special.
Because I put that button and they weren't expecting it. And they'd been watching this speech, for the last, 45 minutes or whatever we were working on it. So I finally got the tag and they appreciated it. And it's a great, as a theater actor, that's, hey, I'm getting the applause. That's very lovely.
Yeah. You're like, that's what I like.
That's kind of what
So Randy, we're kind of up at it because it's just the way Zoom has it. So this has been a lot of fun. One question I always love asking folks is, like, early on in your journey, did you ever keep any mementos, like Pale Rider script, any specific ones early on that you remember, like, hey, this is something that could be important one day?
What would I had a wonderful original sketch of the spaceship that my character on Enterprise was in. It was a lovely, handmade piece that the artist had done. That and of course, I save a lot of theater posters and stuff like that for my theater stuff.
Yeah.
But for the acting stuff, occasionally you get a piece of clothing or so. I used to have a poncho that came from Pale Rider. But of course, eventually I wore the hell out of it, and
it just gets to the point.
The
So
moths
it's
got
like
to it.
so much stuff, right?
Yeah,
You get so much stuff, like keeping scripts and.
Yeah. I don't, I don't have a whole lot of tchotchkes from things, but.
Man, Randy was awesome. Really, to be honest, the photo at the right place, right time is just so cool. Like, oh yeah, that guy. Oh, he looks like he can do that. All right, cool. Let's cast him. And you know what? That's all you need sometimes. You still have to nail it. If you would have went on set, fumbling, stumbling, get the next guy on that list. But he nailed it. And I just love people that love the craft, because you have other careers. People sometimes you fall out of love of it. You go to a restaurant. Oh my God, my favorite chef. Oh, they retired. Oh my God, they were so young. It's like, hey, it's a lot. Same with acting. It's so cool that people just love the craft so much and what it brings to them. And how about that story about, giving that speech and walking off, not being told to, and it like worked. Whoa, kind of shocking. So yeah, Randy was awesome. So yeah, your homework is Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh. And so don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Good night, guys.